Good morning. This is Prince Anael Bey of Temple Alhambra of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Today we're going to talk politics, in particular politics in Washington, D.C. While many of you really don't see the connection or correlation between the United States of America and America itself. You all think that it is one and the same place. No. America is separate and apart from the United States. Although we do have an interest in the United States, considering it was we Moors, who loaned the United States the $2 million that it took to start up and create the East Indian Trading Company, which was the first name of this corporation. You need to also understand this. Only corporations are founded. Now, what this means is whenever you hear anything about the founding fathers, they are the founders of a corporation, not a nation, not a government. It's simply a company. That is what they founded. That is what can be founded only. Corporations. We do have an interest in the United States. We are still owed the original $2 million that we loaned the founding fathers. We are also due interest on that loan. 800 years worth of interest, in fact. But now to go on. Currently, the president of that corporation masquerading as a government is Donald J. Trump. And Donald J. Trump is the best thing to happen to the United States since Abraham Lincoln. He really is. Now, for you African Americans who are still on the Democratic plantation, and you will find nothing good in what the President Donald J. Trump does. Let me remind you of some things. You have never lived a Republican form of life here in this republic. It is a republic for a reason, not a democracy. Democracy is evil. Democracy is an evil thing. You were Republicans before the European came, and you should be Republican now. The Democrats is a fake made-up name, and it was created by Horace Greeley. Horace Greeley created the two-party system. Because before he did that, there were lots of political parties here. They were all Moor. They were all Moor. But back to politics. I'm going to confer these degrees on you. The fourth degree is language. The fourth degree in Moorish science is language. And flags have a language. Let me demonstrate these degrees to you. When you see a flag, or in this case, where the United States is concerned, its banner of commerce, because it is not a flag. It is not a nation's flag. because the United States is not a nation. It is not a government. It is a corporation. But back to the language of flags. When a flag flies this way, either east and west, what it is saying is we are at war. When a flag hangs, when it flies perpendicular to the ground, to the earth, what that flag is saying is we are a nation at peace. When a flag flies in the reverse, it means we are a nation in trouble. That's the language of flags. And on every flagpole, everywhere in this land, you see that United States banner of commerce flying east and west. What that means, and I'm talking particularly to my nephews, what that means is the United States is at war with America. That is what that means. And it always has been. The United States, it has always been at war with America. This you all need to know. Because signs and symbols are for the conscious mind. And you need to know the language of flags. When it flies this way, we are at war with you. When it flies this way, perpendicular to the earth, we are at peace with you. When it flies backwards, we are a people in distress. And if you look at these young soldiers now, and you look on that left arm, or that right arm with however they put it, you're going to see that banner of commerce flying backwards. Now, this lie was created and perpetuated on September 11, 2001. So much for the language of flags. Now you have those degrees. You've got that information now. What are you going to do with it? As I stated earlier, we have an interest in the United States. And being the de jure government here, our interest in the United States is financial and what it is doing politically. Currently, its finances are strained, even though it owes this government $1.2 trillion and 7 years worth of interest. That is what it owes currently. And when the United States owes a debt, the interest is accrued at a rate of 5.5% per day. $1.2 trillion and interest added over 7 years. You do the math. Now back to President Trump. Again, he is the best thing that's happened to the United States since Lincoln. And Lincoln had some serious decisions to make because he was trying to hold the Union together. And he was going to do whatever it took to save the Union. Donald Trump is doing everything he can to save the United States. He's going to put it in order. The reason that a lot of people don't like Trump is because he is not a politician. He's a billionaire, so he can't be bought off. What are you going to pay him with? Money? He doesn't need your money. What are you going to do? Co-opt him like they did Obama? That boy got co-opted the day his name was thrown into the ring for president. He'd been co-opted before he sat in that office. Donald Trump, for those people on a fixed income, let me demonstrate to you what this man has done. He has committed no crime against either man nor his company. He's committed no crime, but he's been accused of all kinds of things. These accusations, they stem from what's called an ignominious defeat. He defeated the Democratic nominee. They really didn't have anybody. He said 6 words that should remain in the minds of all so-called black people and African Americans. And what Trump told them, check that. What he asked them was relevant. He asked them, what have you got to lose? And the answer is nothing. The Democrats have given you nothing. They prey on you. They pray to you, and they pray for you. But mostly they simply prey on you. P-R-E-Y. Trump's not a politician. Let me share with you just one of the things that he has done where it benefited the people. Among the first things that DJ did was he gave everybody a 2% increase in their monthly checks. Now, Obama could have done that, but he didn't. Obama could have done a lot of things, but he didn't. You Negroes thought that just because he had the same color skin as you, that you niggas were going to be leaving your chicken bones and chicken boxes all over the White House lawn. That's what you thought. That's what you thought. And even though Barack Obama didn't do anything for you, you still shout, you know, Obama's my man. How pitiful of you. How pitiful of you. None of you ever studied his platform. None of you ever bothered to find out what he was about. Just because he was the same skin color as you. How ridiculous you are. However, in the upcoming elections, and I am talking to you staters, not Americans. Even though Americans are allowed to vote in United States elections. For you staters, you United Staters, you'd be better off doubling down on Donald J. Trump. He is the closest thing to the truth you will ever see in politics. And for my nephews, you have nothing to fear except the fear-mongering. To my nephews, I want you to do this. You keep your American militias. You grow your American militias. When I make the United States turn loose what it owes this government, I will have absolutely no compunction whatsoever about contributing $3 million to the growth of an American militia. Let me explain to you what I mean and why I say that. What I mean is this: America has always had a militia of sorts until the European came, and he came with his weapons of cowards, a musket ball, and an apparatus from which to fire it. That is not how men did combat. It was hand to hand, man to man. A gun is a coward's weapon. However, I want my nephews to continue to grow your militias. I will help fund them because they are necessary. Let me explain to you some things that I know you do not know. I wore the uniform during the Vietnam War. When you look at a U.S., when you look at an Army soldier's tab over his right pocket, what you're going to, check that, over his left pocket, over his right pocket's his name, over his left pocket, what you're going to see is U.S. Army. For the Navy, you are going to see U.S. Navy. Those are the only two branches of the military that were authorized and sanctioned by the Emperor Sidi Mohammed Bey. And in the preamble to the Constitution for the United States, it clearly states, and to provide for the common defense, meaning the defense of the United States and the defense of America, which is why America was the only country in the world which had a National Guard. And that is because Emperor Sidi Mohammed Bey, he told George and all of the rest of the emissaries from that would-be corporation, well, if you go off to fight somebody, you make sure you leave a standing army here. That standing army that is here is now referred to as the National Guard. We were the only place in the world with one, and that was by contract. The contract I'm speaking of is the Constitution for the United States. Yes, you keep your well-regulated militia. I want my nephews to be ever strong here because they are Americans too now. They are Al-Moroccan. After 800 years here, yeah, they too are Al-Moroccan now. They are Al-Moroccan. Our nieces and nephews should no longer be viewed as white people who are against us. Don't be stupid. If you knew anything, what you would know is those are our nieces and nephews. They came from us. And you've got an obligation to them because they don't know. They don't know so much. They don't know so much. And we've got an obligation to them. They are misguided, misled, miseducated, just like the Moors here, just like the Asiatics here. But Donald J. Trump is trying to straighten all of that out. And he's attempting to do this under heavy fire. Under heavy fire. And I will tell you this. He will emerge victorious. Because what he's doing, he is doing in the name of righteousness. And I will share this with you again. My nieces, nephews, my brothers and sisters. You need to get back to the frame of mind of your ancient foremothers and forefathers. They were Republican. There were no Democrats. I told you, Horace Greeley made that up. Let's go back to banners for a second. The banner for the original Moorish party here is now referred to as the Grand Old Party, the GOP. That symbol on the banner of the Republican Party, it is an elephant. And for those of you who do not understand what the elephant represents, the elephant is the watchdog for the Moors. That is the Moors' protection. The elephant. That is why it is on the GOP banner. Because what is considered the Grand Old Party is one of the last vestiges of the original Moorish political parties which were here. And it too was sanctioned by the emperor. However, back to these name tags. When you see U.S. Army, that means that it is in service to the Republic. The same thing with the U.S. Navy. In 1948, when the U.S. Army Air Forces, or Air Corps, broke off and became a separate branch, it became known as the U.S. Air Force. Let me tell you what those periods mean again. Those periods mean that it was sanctioned by the emperor and it is in service to the Republic. There is one military outfit that has absolutely nothing to do with the Union of States. Its initials is USMC. There are no periods there. And there's a reason for that. USMC actually stands for United States Military Corporation, not Marine Corps. The hell is that? Marine means on the sea. Marine means on the sea. They're not on the sea. They're in places like Lejeune, 29 Weeds out in California, Gitmo Bay in Cuba. They're not on the sea, and they are not in service to the Republic. They were created by George Washington in his plan to conquer this land on behalf of the Church of Rome. There's an interesting piece of literature that you all ought to avail yourselves of. It's called The Sacred Fire. The Sacred Fire is a book about George Washington and his beliefs. And if you read that book and you have any sense at all, what you'll learn from that book is George Washington was a fanatic. And I guess he had to be, considering he had Moorish blood running through his veins. You all didn't know that? Another thing your grand sheik didn't teach you? Let me ask you this. How many amalgamated Moors do you know named Washington? I'll give you a minute. I'll give you an hour. I'll give you a day, and I'll give you a week. You can't name any. He was the only European-looking individual with Moorish blood in his veins. His family came from, they were the descendants of Moors. They changed their name to Washington. Their Moorish name was Wessington, an old and venerable Moorish name. Wessington. And they changed it to Washington. And that is the only amalgamated Moor you will ever know named Washington. Everyone else named Washington is Asiatic. And it does not necessarily mean that they are descended from George Washington. That is not what that means. Wessington, it wasn't as common as Smith back when we were in charge of our home. But it was a name that was common enough. You had Prince Aaron Wessington out of Aba. Aba is now known as the state of Missouri. He was George Wessington. And he was Morisco. That is why, if you read that book, The Sacred Fire, he is a fanatic. George Washington was a religious fanatic. When you read that book and you know the true story, the real story, when you read that book, coupled with the knowledge of real story, you will not read that record the way it was intended for you to read, because when you know what is not written, it's really easy to fill in the blank spots. George Washington was actually George Wessington. His entire family was Wessington, and they changed it to Washington. And you'd be hard-pressed to find an amalgamated Moor named Washington. They are rare, if they exist at all. I have never known one. I've never known an amalgamated Moor named Washington. But now let's get back to politics and the United States. Donald Trump, he is, for all intents and purposes, he could be classified as a savior of the United States. I like his stance on things. I like his attitude when he is right. And all of these talking heads are trying to convince him that he is wrong. He's an enemy of the state. He couldn't be further from the truth. But then again, I guess he could be the enemy of the state when the state wants to keep its Asiatic population enslaved. Yes, he is an enemy of the state then. He's an enemy of the state. And if he's going to be driven all over hither and yon like Will Smith in that movie, he can hide out with me. He can hide out with me. Because any man who would dare to do the correct and righteous thing on behalf of other people, that individual is to be admired, and he is to be heralded, not vilified and victimized by a people who hate more than anything else that he is not a politician. The United States, whether it knows it or not, has been waiting for a Donald J. Trump. And I sincerely hope that just like the Bushes did, I hope one of his sons run. I hope one of his sons run for president. Who would be a much better advisor and chief of staff than his father? I really do hope one of his sons run. Because the course he has set the United States on is a course where the United States should recover economically, industrially, and in all of the other commercial ways that a corporation has to survive. Donald Trump is waking people up. The truly sad thing is, you have these African Americans who only know the Democratic plantation and what the Democrats tell them, and they're all right with it. They're okay with it. And so they hate Trump. They can't tell you why. They don't like him. They can't tell you why. They can't name one thing that President Trump has done to throw the United States of America off kilter. Nothing. They cannot do it. And they can't do it because there's nothing there. They try to lynch him in the media, calling him a spy. And all of this other nonsense. And he is the best thing to ever happen to the United States since Lincoln. Because both men did and is doing the very best that he can to resurrect the United States from the abysmal, demolished corporation that it had been under some bad Republicans and under an even worse Democrat, and I'm talking about William Jefferson Clinton. While the Asiatics were all too ready to give Clinton his brotherhood card, they completely forgot or didn't understand anything about those bills he was signing, such as the anti-crime legislation. What they didn't realize was, since a lot of Asiatics, they make their money in the underground economy. When Bill Clinton signed that bill, Clinton is the one who gave you 20 years for having a rock, as opposed to a slap on the wrist for having powder cocaine. And what the so-called black people saw was a disparity in the meting out of justice when it came to illicit drugs. They saw disparity because they didn't see the picture. They didn't see the picture. They know that they deal with rocks and they cook up cocaine, which had been recognized, and rightfully so, as a scourge on the American frontier and plain, as well as the United States. Clinton's the one that did that to you. And you will embrace him. Clinton gives you 20 years, and you embrace him. President Trump gives you $20 and you want to vilify him. Make that make sense to me, please, somebody. Because it just doesn't. The Moors of Temple Alhambra are Republican. And we will vote Republican. Yes, we are allowed to vote in the United States. Remember, the United States is subservient to this de jure government. And we are allowed to vote in United States elections. We're allowed to do that because it appears that that is where most of the votes come from, out of America, not the United States. And so I am going to urge all Asiatic Americans, even Moriscos, to vote in this upcoming presidential election and do it the way your ancestors did it. You vote for a Republican existence, not a plantation Democrat existence. You haven't had enough? You haven't had enough of them yet? They give you a patronage job. Well, that means they got your loyalty for life, huh? Like you've got no mind of your own. Like you have no mind of your own. You choose self-defeat. And that is why you do not have the right to choose reparations. So whatever you do, do not bring that reparations nonsense to President Trump. He understands what it takes for a nation to receive reparations. Please do not bring that to him. Do not demonstrate your ignorance so publicly. Employ that first degree, which is patience, and see how things turn out. Then you will have an informed opinion. If you are one who opines, you will have an informed opinion. And if you vote Democratic because your so-called leaders are the same color as you, and they're on the plantation, this is what you had better know. They're in the house, and you're in the field, getting hit with that cat o' nine tails, because your cotton sack ain't full enough. Yeah, that kind of thing. They want you to vote Democratic because you are filling their pockets and you're keeping them in their lazy-ass jobs. And they don't do anything for you. But you're all right with that. You're not living a Republican form of life. You are living the life of a slave. And as long as there is an organization like African descendants of slaves, why don't they turn those African descendants away from the Democrats? Adolf, you want to do something? Get your brothers and sisters out of that damn Democratic Party. Then you'll be doing something. You want reparations? Repair yourselves. Get out of that Democratic Party. Then you can start repairing yourself. And when you begin industry, you'll be on the road to reparations. Only you'll be doing it for yourselves. It's not a handout that you think you are owed by somebody. Your ancestors were Republican, and so should you be. It's 16 degrees here in Mecca today, which is why today is a Carhartt day. And I will talk with you all later. Cogitate on what I told you. You vote for Trump and get over the hump. Peace.